Rorschach, issue 9, Tom King and Jorge Fornes, getting late in the game with this book here, as we're getting closer to the ending. And this issue, we're back at the farmhouse that we kind of spent a lot of time at last issue, but this time it's the investigator actually going there himself and effectively just piecing together like what happened here, what the conversations were. And I talked about transitions in one of the other books. There's a constant great thing here where it's doing the sort of the warm tones and the cold tones. The warm tones being present day, the cold tones being the flashback. But there's a great transition here where the kid, where she ends up appearing in the other color, and you realize, wait, she's transitioned into present day. And it's not that she's literally there, of course. It's the idea that our main character here is talking to a version of her in his head. But that transition was fantastic because you just sort of like clock it and go, wait a minute. And it's really well done. So I thought that was really good. I'm gonna let the cat out. So you say so.
No, yeah. So the thing with this one is, so the last issue had that really cool thing that you had the 3 different characters going over what they had done at the farm, and you could kind of piece it together. Here, though, it's very much more understated, that it is him walking through, and we don't know if this is exactly what happened, but this is what he thinks the conversations were that would have led them to do what they did, right? So that's the interesting thing here, is we don't know if this is the 100% truth. This is just what we think that he thinks, right?
Well, I don't know, because I was kind of reading it as this is what happened, and he's trying to like imagine what happened. So I don't know if he's necessarily piecing everything we're seeing together. Okay. What I do think is interesting though about this is that in every single example where it shows you like a scene in the present day and a scene in the flashback, in every single scenario, he's standing in the Rorschach position.
Yep.
In every single example, he makes the noise, and it's always exactly where Rorschach was in the corresponding scene. And I don't know. I think we kind of theorized before that could possibly if we're really believing that in some way the Rorschach spirit is actually like reincarnating in other people, like. Is some of that fire, is some of that spirit manifesting in our main character? Is that kind of what it's doing here and showing us and the framing between the two scenes?
Yeah,
I
definitely. And that it's the deeper he digs, the more consumed by it he gets, right?
Yeah. He's going down the rabbit hole in so many ways.
This is the most interesting thing, because I said when you were gone, this is pretty understated issue. Like, I don't feel like there's a lot to discuss in like the grand scheme of things, because I feel this is the creative team pulling things together. Now we're going to see how they all fall through. But the most interesting thing for me here is the idea of the comedian and Rorschach being on opposite ends, right? And you get into the philosophies of that. And you have the kid, explaining this to Meyerson, that, he goes, if you're Rorschach come back to life, then maybe Charlie's the comedian. Because, the way I see it, there's 2 forces in the universe. They're always at war. So if you're Rorschach, then he's the comedian. And that with Rorschach, that's you. That's meaning people look at your face and they see something about themselves, something true and lasting. And, with the comedian, it's almost this nihilism of he knows what life's about, and he's in the background laughing about it,
And I think ultimately knows that it's like none of it matters and it's meaningless, so therefore he's going to control it and laugh at it for his own pleasure.
Exactly, and to him, the truth behind the thing is there's nothing behind it. So he smiles because what else are you going to do? Versus Rorschach going like, no, this is the truth. It's black and white. And sure, people can take meaning from it, but at the end of the day, facts are facts.
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea that the idea of a Rorschach test is that everyone sees something different in it, but it's always reflective of who they are. So so the comedian's whole thing and what's represented here, but the idea of this, Turley having the big, because she mentions that she's heard that he has a big comedian, painting in his office or whatever. The idea that that's about like having the fake phony face, whereas Well, obviously everyone sees something different in a Rorschach, the idea being that that reflects reality back at you, and you have to accept the way things are, and therefore, for better or worse, obviously Rorschach, the original Rorschach, wasn't a healthy response to how to fix the world, but that didn't mean that it wasn't necessarily a good counterpoint to what the what the comedian's philosophy was.
Both sides can be corrupting, and it's what you do with it ultimately, right? So when you think about the Watchmen, who's in the middle there? And it's Night Owl and Silk Spectre.
Well, I think that's a really interesting phrase you just used there, is that both sides can be corrupting, because the end of this issue introduces a very interesting idea, which is that so as he's looking through the house, the investigator finds that this carpet was put down unprofessionally. It sticks out to him, so he lifts it up, and there's a big blood stain. And he talks about this and how the ghost, if you want to call it that, of the kid is saying, "Hey, well, it was my arm. That's when I got shot." He's like, "This isn't an arm. It's too much blood." And it leads them to where this body was dumped. They killed someone here, and it's someone who's been buried in this silo out back.
Septic tank.
In a septic tank,
which I don't want to know what he did to get that body out. Because...
Oh, yeah.
Ew.
So and it's where he finds a pager on this body, and he calls the number that's on it, and he's asking, "Hey, I got this number that's on a pager. I've never seen the number before. Who is this?" And it turns out that this guy worked for the head of the campaign for Redford. So in some way, and when we get the flashback as well of the old man Myerson and the kid, talking about this guy coming to see them, it's because he's got credentials that will get them into the press event, the press conference, the rally that Turley's going to have back in issue 1. So it's wait, was Redford, or at least someone who worked for Redford? I mean, well, Redford himself knows about this is another question, but someone working for Redford was actually kind of sponsoring them in their attempt to assassinate the opposition.
Yeah. So it seems like
that's a big deal.
Because he finds it. The only thing he can find on this body is the pager, and he calls it, and it runs it back that he's the deputy campaign manager for the re-election of President Robert Redford. And it cuts to Rorschach, Myerson and the kid, and how they're in full costume at this point. So when they come to meet him, he's like, "Redford wants us to succeed. He wants Shirley killed. He's going to help us. It will be good." And so it's like they've fully been corrupted by whatever. Because there's another moment too where the kid's talking about stuff and about what, her dad hated Redford, right? I'm trying to think where this is at. He's like, "My daddy hated him with every fiber. Because he just thought he wanted to take things from us. And we're going to shoot the one man who could challenge Redford. He would be in flames with anger because, but they talk about that's what the squid are, right? Is that I'm trying to find it. So that's what the squids are. The inevitable, I'll get it, absurdity of the abyss. Like dirt on the ground, and it's just what's beneath your feet. So there's this whole idea of the spectrum of stuff now, right? Of Rorschach and the comedian and Redford and Turley and the whole idea of the squid and her dad, and just how far off the reservation were these people, right? They're pulling at all these things, and is that going to affect our protagonist? Is this what breaks him? That into that Rorschach, the seeking of the truth is, almost like it's this Lovecraftian, pursuit of knowledge that drives you crazy.
I mean, I have no idea how we're going to wrap up the story with this main character, but I so much of this, so one of the great moments of the art that I really like is we see her draw the comedian's button in the sand, and then when it cuts back to our main character, he's looking down, and you can just faintly see the circle. You can't see the details. It's obviously mostly went away, but it's the idea that the bright sun behind him, it's the harsh light of day, and now it's sort of someone's actually looking at all of this now after the fact, and it's there's just all this build and all this kind of like quiet reflection, and the idea that that our main character is now seeing a version of the kid that he's now talking to in his head. Like, is this an example of him going further down that rabbit hole where he's now starting to talk to someone like that? He's digging out this body on his own. It's all starting to feel very unhealthy, and how it, like, deep he's getting into it in many ways. And I think that's one of the many interesting things about this book is just this examination of a fairly almost personality lacking character to begin with, and how as the story's going on, it's kind of filling in through just these minute reactions to things and what's not being said. It's really good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's it's that idea again, talking about the great transitions. When he does make that phone call, when he tries to find out the number in the pager, and when he hangs up, it cuts back to the cold flashback, and it's the same shot, and then it's like Rorschach's on the phone at the bottom of the page in the same position again. He's always in the exact same place that Rorschach was. And these comparisons between the flashbacks and the present day,
Right.
which leads to the conversation about the guy coming to give them the passes. And because it's a very downbeat ending. Actually, it's not like a big cliffhanger moment. It's just it's them talking about this guy coming. Myerson says Redford wants us to succeed. He wants Turley killed. He's going to help us. It will be good. And you feel like this is not as clear cut as he's making it sound. Like, obviously a confrontation happens. Is it as simple as they didn't want a witness to who they were, or is it more complicated? Did this guy try to confront them about what they were doing? Was there a disagreement about what the plan was? So on.
Right, but as it goes, you see them get suited up more and more, right? At least Rorschach, at least Myerson, right? Because he puts on the mask and he puts on the hat and the overcoat and all that stuff. So when this dude comes, he's going to be seeing the kid in Rorschach, not Myerson, and I forget what her real name is. So, again, if they were worried about witnesses and stuff. So, again, it makes me wonder if, like, again, their corruption of the fact is this guy's like, well, no, we don't want that. But they just need to get the passes because they've already made up their mind, So, yeah, whatever it is, I'm still impressed with the storytelling.
Yeah.
Again, this issue was so understated compared to the last one, but it's still, there's still so much to go in this overall mystery.
Yeah, and the final panel, again, it transitions back to the present day with our investigator sitting in the same place that Rorschach was as he was saying this to the kid. And it's just him sitting silently contemplating the fact that he's discovered a connection of someone who is here with these characters who connects back to Redford, and what that means for the overall scope. Because, typically what we hear in this book is a very, like, the people who hate Redford, so they're a very particular part of the political spectrum, and they say all these awful things about him. They say that he's taking things away from us. It's that kind of very, devout belief in, like, antagonistic attitude towards them. Not that necessarily we get a lot of stuff praising Redford, but we kind of, just from the context of how they speak about him, it sounds like he is very positive on the other side of things. But then you get to this and it's like, wait, if he's conspiring to kill the opposition, like, okay, how consumed by, are these... Because I think there was a point in this book where we thought the kid was very... We questioned why they were killing Turley, because we thought that she was going to be very pro, like, his side of things based on her father. But this issue, of course, makes it very clear that she knows she's going against the wishes of her father, because her father would hate that she's doing this.
Right, and also that there's a thing where she said that she dreamed about her mom and her dad, and then goes, "You think I'll dream about Turley after I kill him?" And I was like, well, we know she killed it. What happened with mom, right? Like, there's just this darkness to her that, man. So who knows?
And even the trust between them, where Myerson's willing to, like, hold out something for target practice, where she's, like, sniping from, like, this distance to practice with a moving target, because she's hitting the shot every time, but he's like, he'll be moving around though. We have to practice with it moving. So is this level of trust in her, his belief in her ability. And one of the I think I theorized this like 2 or 3 issues ago, but I said that I just threw out the idea that what if their whole game plan here is to inspire the person that comes next, which is, you know, our main character? If the goal here is not actually to succeed in the murder, but it is to inspire the person who's going to look into it.
Keep it going.
Yeah.
You got to keep the memory of Rorschach going, and whether that actually is the spirit of Rorschach jumping into him, or he's like, oh no, this is what the facts are. I have to fix the world.
I would suspect that they're talking about the reborn spirit of Rorschach, but in actual reality, it's more just the idea and belief of Rorschach.
It's that once you look at the truth, and then it drives you insane.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's going to be him right now. He's almost or he's going to be the one that breaks it, or whatever. You know, and that's maybe what it needs. You need to break the spectrum, because I was getting very much light side, dark side of the Force type vibes from the whole comedian Rorschach thing. But it's not as simple as that. And even once you start getting into that whole stuff in Star Wars, it's not that simple. So
yeah, because Rorschach was not a sympathetic character.
No,
he was
right, and that's why I brought up Smoke Sector and Night Owl. Right, when you read the original Watchmen story, they're the sympathetic ones all the time.
They're the human beings in the middle that actually you want to root for. Yeah,
exactly. And you know, Night Owl was he was Rorschach's partner. And kind of Rorschach going too far is what kind of led him to retire.
And that's not ignore the symbolism here as well of the fact that Meyerson drew her a photo of drew her a drawing of Rorschach, and that portrait of Rorschach got hit with the bullet that was aiming for her. You know, there was a gunshot and it gets right through its head, right through the head of Rorschach on the wall.
Well, not just that, wasn't that his character that was based off of? That Rorschach was based off of, right? In the comics.
Oh, was it? Maybe it was. Yeah, I just looked like Rorschach to me. but yeah,
no, but that's the point, right? That's the question, character that they're all kind of based off of.
Yeah.
But as I was saying too, I want to wrap up my Self Spectre thing. Is she's the daughter of the comedian, right? So that whole aspect of it too, and those two being the kind of normal and being pulled in those different directions.
Yeah, and Laurie, like the idea that her dad is pro the comedian guy. Her dad was pro Turley, and that she's the daughter of that, and Laurie was kind of the daughter of the. There's like a parallel there between them.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so there's a lot working here. So, cool.
Yeah, it's neat. It's a very, very good issue. I mean, not surprising because these have all been fantastic. So.
Yeah.
But no, I'm super excited about the next. The next 3 years. I can't believe there's 3 more of these to go. Jeez,
I know.
Spoiled. What are you rating Rorschach issue 9, Matt?
I'm giving this a 9.
Yeah, 9 out of 10, which is almost a low score for this book at this point, but 9 out of 10.